Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Squad Academy. All right, let's just jump right into it, man. I don't have energy for this. Actually, you know what? No. Hey, come on. It's a wonderful Saturday morning. But you know the vibes, everyone. It's been a good week. I hope you all have had a good week. And of course, on the call, I have my brother, the newest son of Dallas, the newest son of Prosper, the entrepreneur of Edo States, the Prince of Lagos. You guys know everything. I know everything. The big man, the newest member of the eight-figure community or whatever you call it. How you doing, brother?
So you got the wine me, man. Doing good, guys. Setting me up for billing.
Oh man, but yeah. Let's dive right into it, man. I know this week a few things happened as well again. Guys, I know we missed last week. We tried to make it work. But many things. The Prince of Lagos was moving.
I went for a friend's wedding in Houston, so it really.
The big boys' wedding that I didn't get invited to. Guys, look at me. I'm not on that level yet, but guys, keep pushing and praying for me. But you went to a big boys' wedding in Houston. He just forgot about your boy. He not texted me on Sunday evening.
The real issue is that you guys don't know this, but you can't access that directly. So I messaged his PA. I said, I won't call the PA Oga. I said, Oga, I beg tell Oga. So two Oga factor. I said, Oga, I beg tell Oga that this weekend. He said no, that it's short notice. Please next time tell us 2 weeks in advance. I said, sorry, sir, no wahala. So I apologize, for the logistics issue. Next time, I'll tell the PA in advance so that the PA can tell you in advance of advance. Understand? But I understand your schedule was also busy. I know you went for, the fundraising for the city of Austin. So now you be donor for the city. So I respect. Yes. And guys, just you give me insider gist as well. When Tinubu said they found a silent investor that gave $10 billion to stabilize the naira. I'm not saying anything, but I just say that will thank you for your patriotism. Because
good.
Single-handedly saving the naira, man.
Oh, guys, let me say this thing, man. I beg. Don't be blocking my blessings on this call, man. I beg, guys. If you're too blessed, take go, beg. I beg. Well, things are hard in this country. Things are hard. I beg, send me the money. I beg. Don't block my blessings. But you guys know everything I do said is just cap. Because at the end of the day, he's a big boy. He went to Houston driving the EV. I don't even have an EV. No EV to Houston. Can you imagine from Dallas? No.
He doesn't have an EV because he only likes G-Wagon. So he's just waiting for them to do the EV version. I understand that, bro. You understand? We understand your level, but us boys are humble now. We did.
No holla. But yeah, now we missed last week. So then again, a lot of topics we're going to talk about today kind of like roll over from last week. That came out this week with Flutterwave. We'll start off with it that I thought was really interesting because I feel like this whole IPO thing has been in the news for a while, and we still don't know when exactly that's going to happen. And now with the news that came out this week, I think it's only right that we touch on that whole thing. Then we'll talk about Paystack. For those who don't know, Paystack announced recently that they will be downsizing and exiting. They'll be downsizing and trying to focus their staff in operations and markets that they primarily operating. Then we'll round up with Bolt Food, who made an announcement about exiting the Nigerian and South African markets. So diving right into it, I guess we can go with the most interesting one. I would think is really interesting, right? The baby of the tech baby of Africa, right? The fintech, the next biggest thing that's supposed to happen, right? Flutterwave. There was a news that came out recently on the CFO O'Neil Bambani, who's also an ex-American Express exec, who resigned from Flutterwave just 18 months after joining them. And this has raised a lot of questions, right? Because back in 2021, I think he joined in October or so, if I recall correctly. Sorry, was it March or October 2021? But back in 2021, when he joined the company, he joined them when they were going through a whole slew of difficulties with expanding to certain markets. That's when they were facing the whole issue in Kenya with getting their license to operate in our markets. I think they were also going through some lawsuits as well in Kenya around the operations in that space as well and operating without certain licenses and permits. So he joined Flutterwave during that period. And he didn't even join alone, right? There were also two other execs from American Express that joined the company with him as well. And they joined with the whole goal of helping Flutterwave get through that whole period, and of course, put them in the good light as they were pushing for this IPO, right? And sorry guys, just taking it back. Bambani actually joined Flutterwave in May 2022, right? So fast forward just 18 months after that he actually announced, he went to LinkedIn and announced that he'll be living Flutterwave. And I think it was just more so just saying, and the whole story, of course, we all know that there's a way, PR on the outside, they have to manage this stuff. And I think his whole message was around wanting to pursue other ventures, right, and do other things. So I was able to get Flutterwave past the losses that they were facing in Kenya, and now Flutterwave is now focused on expanding that market and expanding in other markets as well. And they're still pushing for that IPO, although they haven't given us a specific date yet for that IPO. But Edisa, going to you, like, what's your whole take on this stuff, right? Because not only has Bambani, who came with a lot of credibility and status, right, being an ex American Express.
American Express, Cabbage, all of them.
What's your whole take on this stuff? Do you think he was hired strictly just to get the company past the whole debacle that they're going through? Or do you think there's more to this, just because of the fact that not only did he leave, but the other two execs that joined him from American Express also left right around the same time? So do you think there's more to this that we should be thinking about?
I certainly do, but remember the other startup we analyzed, I think a month ago, right? That we discussed them months before that, where a high profile, I think the COO left, a lady, right? Then
was not Payday. Was Payday, right?
Exactly. Then a month after, and she made it look, they tried to make it look amicable, everything. But I said a high profile person living like that is too abrupt and it's too quick. Her tenure was very short. And we now later knew more information eventually. So when you're a director in a company, you are in driver's seat. You're seeing 2 years ahead of what the company is doing. You're seeing things before the news announcements. And when you're a high profile individual, you're thinking about your career long term. You're saying, look at everybody saying, he led Cabbage, right? And Cabbage got acquired by American Express. So he even led that integration. He now stayed on board, then stayed, and became relevant within American Express. So that's his CV, that's his bragging rights. And that's what, Flutterwave looked at him and his team for, and literally not just poach him, but poach two of his people with him. So I'm thinking from his perspective, I'm thinking forward, like, look, whatever is about to happen, I don't want to stain my white. So I'm leaving before that happens. Because remember, you and I talked about it before, that directors in Nigeria forget that once you're executive director in a company, you are liable. You get, for any ethical issue or legal issue, you are liable. That's why some directors have director insurance. That way, when any liability, they pay insurance for it. So I think there's a very big red flag. And to your point, I think he came in to lead the IPO march, right? Because a foreign CFO, he has more contact and Rolodex with the US and US network and US investment banks. So it made more sense. That's what it looks like to me. And I think that those other issues that came about, the Kenya, the allegations, the fraud, were even distractions for him, things that he wasn't even predicting, and he had to quickly put out the fires. But if I were to guess, I feel like his main hiring mandate was, this guy is going to lead us through the IPO. We're going to brand him as, look, investors see our CFO, he's the Silicon Valley veteran, all of that. That's what I think he came in on board to do. So when he now saw all this fight here, fraud here, what's going on here? You couldn't tell me this. So that's what I think. And for him to leave and post it on his LinkedIn, he's sending another message telling you guys, I washed my hands off this. So he didn't do a silent leaving. He didn't let the board do the announcements. He's announcing it by himself. That was very deliberate. He's trying to control the narrative, right? And the other people that left to him as well. You understand? Know yourself, no, because if your guys are going with you,
Yeah.
they are definitely hedging career-wise, I believe.
Yeah. And I guess the bigger question is what exactly could be going on internally right now we don't know about, right? This whole IPO thing has been going on for a while. The last that I heard of it was probably earlier this year, late last year, when the announcement came out that JP Morgan will actually be the institution that will help take them public, right? I think that's really the last I've heard of it. Now, over this year, you've seen them make moves, whether it's the redesign of the Send app, the reinvestment into their cross-border payments, the expansion into like customer payments in Nigeria and in the main markets.
Kenya, India, they've done a lot of, you're right, lots of deals this past year.
So there's been a lot of deals and announcements, right? Just to, and my mind, it's always been to put them in a positive light as they gear up for this IPO, right? But it's like you can make 10 steps forward, but it just takes one major issue to like set you back by 20 steps, right? And these kinds of things don't help, especially when you have someone of this caliber, right, who is leaving your firm. Now, you can say on the outside, you can say it's just an exit, it's just an exec, another exec who's leaving. You can spin it off as, you know what, maybe it's a cost-cutting, some kind of cost-cutting measure. Maybe it's just the fact that maybe he came in for a specific role, but we both know that's not the case. This is someone that had us. He has a high status, right? I mean, Bambani has done it. He's been there and done that, right? He probably even needs to leave
American Express.
So there's no way, you're going to tell me you just went to leave for 18 months, right? I mean, what kind of package are you offering in that suite, right? So there's more to this. Maybe it's a difference in vision. Maybe it's some kind of internal conflict. But the thing about this thing is, more stories always leak about this kind of stuff, right? So down the line, we'll probably hear about what exactly happened. But I just know it sets them back. But I don't know. There's definitely more to this. I don't know. Especially the fact that not only did he leave, the other people left with him as well. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
You're right. And it's a good question you asked. Like, okay, it was an internal issue because they're seeing something ahead. What could that have been? What could that thing have been? And if I put it into two departments, I would say existential risk. Maybe they saw some kind of crazy fraud that they didn't want to be a part of. And guys, I have no insight, obviously. So all I'm doing is guessing. So take it with a grain of salt. So it could be existential risk like that could affect them. So they need to wash their hands clean and say, I wasn't part. Or it could just be personal, like let's say, oh, this company is broke like that, so we can't really pay us. And we'll talk about it later with Paystack, with foreign, what's it called, staff and all of that. So them to just be being considered, say, look, we're seeing the money here, they know if you afford us like that. Let's just, and because the fact that it's all foreign staff that's living, because mind you, we didn't say this, but the person that's not acting as CFO is Israel. Israel is a Nigerian, lives and based in Nigeria, KPMG, veteran, Arthur Anderson. So serious, heavy, OAU alum as well. So serious, heavy backing, like he knows his stuff. So if it was that scary as far as a legal threat or whatever, even him to his mouth now, he has a good CV, he will say, I don't want this. So I think in a minor way, it could just be speculation here, guys. Please don't say I'm gonna say I know people they have more money than me, but maybe they could be broke as far as for paying high, foreign, high profile foreign staff. We saw that with these guys as well. That those guys that do the healthcare genomics company,
Okay.
they were paying serious.
4Gene, right?
Yeah, 54G. That they were paying serious dollars to those guys. So that could just be something, and Flutterwave haven't done a fundraise for a while because they're trying to do IPO. That's a long while of operating on operational cash. So it could just be that. Those guys could just say, more, you see. So I leave it at that. I don't want to speculate too much, guys. But yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. But I think I think the other thing that I'm also just taking into consideration is the fact that the last time Flutterwave raised capital was probably in February 2022. And they raised $250 million, right? I think that was a Series D, right? Okay. So it only there's no one that's going to acquire Flutterwave in Africa right now, unless they can't even say a strike, because that'll just be a direct competition with Paystack.
Unless Squad, we'll do like a leverage buyout and get out of there.
Like a PayPal or something like that requires them, which I don't see happening. But yeah, unless one of those big fintechs based in the US or anything acquire them. But the next plan, which is what they're doing right now, is to go public, because keep in mind they do have a burn rate, right? And I think fintechs probably have the highest burn rates. And looking at the caliber of people on this guy's team, you can see how they probably have a high burn rates, right? So they're reaching like a 2-year, they're reaching like a 2-year period since their last fundraise. They're probably not going to raise capital in today's economy. Looking at, how expensive capital is, right? Probably not going to raise capital. Maybe the play is they're trying to wait for 2024. Maybe in 2024, the environment is more conducive. Interest rates might start going lower, because inflation is now at 3.7-ish%, right? So there's a possibility if interest rates could start dropping next year, right? Especially since it's an election year, just for the optics and to garner votes and stuff like that, right? So although the SEC should be independent, but not SEC, but although the Fed should be independent, right? We both know it doesn't always work that way. But so maybe they're waiting for next year when it's a better economy to go fully public, right? Because I don't think there were a lot of successful IPOs this year, if I'm being honest. All across, regardless of whether it's African or not, there are a lot of successful IPOs, even in the US as well. I think the only ones I enjoyed were those AI companies at the start of the year. I thought it was when I was shouting AI, right? Because of what ChatGPT brought, right? Those are the ones I enjoyed. But since then, it's not really been a great year for IPOs. So maybe that's what the aim is. Maybe they're just holding off to next year, or maybe early 25. They can't wait till 25. I think their bond rate is too high to wait till 2025.
It's too high. And it's a very awkward spot, because you technically shouldn't be raising quick cash if you're trying to do IPO, because then who's the last investor? So it's a very awkward. Once you state that you're going for IPO, you've kind of closed down other funding. Very awkward situation.
Yeah. So at some point they have to go public. Now, then again, maybe internally there are definitely certain difficulties that they face with going public that just haven't been public yet. I don't want to sit here and say it's completely strategic, the decision to wait till 2024 or possibly later. I don't want to say strictly. I want to say strictly. I think they're facing some difficulties, right? Maybe with the road shows, maybe I don't know what it is, but they're definitely facing some difficulties at some points. Maybe they're struggling with devaluation. We spoke with someone who had inside information a couple of months ago, and said a lot of people had struggled with devaluations that are trying to go public at, right? And some people never even say they have more than $1 billion, right? So maybe it's all those things that they're struggling with. And maybe that's why they're trying to boost I won't say boost, they're trying to expand and generate more revenue and cash flow, and maybe even more profitability, and increase their profit margins before trying to go back to the market again, right? Because the thing about the public market is there's no sugarcoating. They will give you your real valuation. They'll give you a real valuation. There's no cooking anything, man.
Take it or leave it.
They will give you a real valuation, man. There's no cooking. So,
and it's hard because right now they probably already have a range. There's things the investment bankers do called football field valuation. So they give you a range already, probably by now, rough estimate. And if you're not trying to even do quick fundraising around maybe Series D, or maybe that I didn't know Series F, G, Series J. Let's say they're trying to do Series J real quick, right? They can't mess up that IPO valuation. It has to be, so they're a very tight corner. I feel bad, and I don't envy whoever is on that seat navigating all those things for them.
But yeah, that's fine. We'll see how this whole thing is. More will come out. But I won't lie to you, that's one IPO that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to that Flutterwave IPO. I think it could be a huge win for a lot of people. And looking at 5-10 years down the line, because I spoke about this before, right? Looking at a lot of like fintechs in Africa, it's different to a Jumia, right? It's different to a Jumia because Flutterwave actually really works, right? Like actually for and fintech is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere, right? And plus, it's still an African-based, African-run company, right? At the Flutterwave, the CEO is still the original CEO is still there. It's still founder-driven and stuff, right? So there are a lot of things that I like about Flutterwave, although they've had a lot of internal issues with the whole thing of bullying and employees complaining here and there. But I think Flutterwave as a company has a bright future, man. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking forward to that IPO. But we'll see how that turns out. Let's move on to the next one, right? Paystack. It's really a fintech deal. Wow. Yeah, there's actually does call it exactly a fintech deal. But anyways,
a real quick, and I'm sorry to drag us back, very quick talk about this Flutterwave. And I beg, guys, don't shoot me for this. But why doesn't like Nigerian Stock Exchange reach out to Flutterwave? The policies have changed. No, because it's not these guys. I think MTN that is worth like 4 or 5 trillion naira or whatever in the market cap. That, give or take, that's like $3 or $4 billion or whatever, right? So they're about MTN's market cap. Let me in Nigeria actually. Yeah,
you just answered it to you. Just answer it to your own mouth. MTN has been a company since freaking when? Since then, it's worth $3-4 billion.
And they just so if the NSA comes to these guys and say, guys, look, there's a big chance. Well, actually, I'm thinking about it because even if I wish somebody would be that daring to pitch them and look, there's a big chance that you could be 10 trillion naira. You get if you push in the Nigerian market, there hasn't been a big IPO in a while. Really sell these guys that pipe dream. These guys try and enter the market at 10 trillion naira or something like that. That is close to give or take $10 billion or maybe 9 billion. God, the recent valuation. Then the investors have to quickly exit, but Nigeria doesn't have dollars, so the investors can't exit. Shit. Okay, they don't do. But I know Nigerian Stock Exchange, I know some guys there. Reach out to Flutterwave, pitch them. Trust me, have confidence. Just pitch. If Nasdaq is taking too long, Nigeria, call them, please.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, all I'll just say is I need your plug, man, because I need to be smoking. Smoking the ganja you're smoking, bro. I mean, nah. I mean, all jokes aside. I think would have been a viable option if they hadn't raised so much capital. Yeah. Right? Because at this point, their main interest, I mean, it's how VC works, it's how the capitalism works. Their main interest is investors and shareholders, right? They're trying to bring. At some point, you're responsible for ensuring that your investors actually get a return on their investments, right? And that's the stage they're getting to now, right? And is there that much liquidity on the Nigerian Stock Exchange? No. I mean, not today. Of course, we do hope that there, right? But there's not that much liquidity on the stock exchange. You mentioned it very well. You said it very well. MTN is well like 3 or 4 trillion naira, right? That comes down to about, give or take, about $3 billion.
It does.
$3 billion, right? So that's MTN that literally dominates the African market. This dominates the African market, right? Now you now look at a Flutterwave that's still numbers are not even close. Profitability is not even close. Profit margins are not even close, right? So they'll
they'll flog them.
At the last fundraising in 2022, were valued at $3 billion. So imagine how the Nigerian stock exchange does.
And I just mentioned they like profitable dividend paying companies. So you're not saying something about growth. What's this? Growth?
This option and now they want dividends.
They'll flog them, and it will be scary because even let's say magically the IPO happens at even Dangote Cement is 5 trillion. So let's say it happens at 7 trillion. It will be very sad for the foreign investors that want to exit because all those VCs that invested in Flutterwave, they now have to get naira, then try and selling it and move out of the country, and Nigeria doesn't have dollars. It's a very, very scary situation. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad that is not a viable option.
It's scary. Yeah, I mean, hopefully someday we get there. But yeah, it ain't happening today. I didn't even cross my mind. Yeah, I don't cross my mind. If they hadn't raised so much capital, yeah, possible. Yeah, it's possible. But they've raised too much. They've raised too much money. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next one, which is Paystack, right? So it was this last week, right? This last week, Paystack CEO, and I mean, I'm sure you guys already know about Paystack, fintech based in Nigeria, got acquired by Stripe. But it's still, I mean, it's still being run, I think, primarily as an independent company, if I'm being fair, right? Or they've been acquired. So the CEO, Shola Akinlade, on Twitter, came out this week on Twitter and actually announced that that they're going to be reducing their operations outside of Africa, and they'll be parting ways with 33 employees in Europe and UAE, right? And this comes after they had, and I think for the past year, they've had this philosophy of trying to recruit the greatest talent across the globe. We both know what COVID did, right? So this is all as a result of COVID, of the pandemic economy, right? When things became a lot more remote, there was a drive for companies to just recruit the best talent, regardless of location. And I think Paystack also was trying to increase their footprints in these markets as well, right? And I think now that the plan, or at least according to what Shola said, if I recall correctly, is now to downsize in these markets and focus on their main markets of operation, right? So of course, which is Nigeria, Kenya, and the other top, or South Africa and other top African countries as well. So, but 33 is a lot, right? Looking at the total number of employees that Paystack have, I don't even think they have more than 200 or 250 employees now, if I recall correctly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So it's still a huge piece of the pie, right? I know this is your area of expertise. What's your take on this? I'm not trying to read too much into this. Clearly, I mean, one thing I would say is, yeah, clearly they wanted to expand to this market, and all that, and maybe they've had some battles expanding to new markets. But I just thought at the same time, these guys must have been bleeding a lot of cash trying to expand to, because now this is a completely different market. UAE now has UAE and Europe. Now all of a sudden you're paying your staff there a lot more than you pay for your staff in Africa, right? We both know how labor is way cheaper in African countries compared to Europe, right? Or UAE as well. So of course this downsizing is also a cost cutting measure as well. But is there also a side of it that's more specific? You know what, we weren't able to expand to these markets like we wanted to, but then again, it's 3 years enough time to try and test that. But like, what's your take on this whole story, man? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, props to Paystack for their exceptional as always, their communication skills. And obviously, if you saw the severance package and the structure, mostly is regulated because in the EU, you can't just fire anyhow like Nigeria. So you had to have dropped that bar. You have to give them 3 months or whatever of salary, 4 months, I think, of
Month salary,
healthcare.
Accelerated. It's 4 months salary, if I recall correctly, and accelerated equity.
Equity vesting and 3 months healthcare still remains there, something like that. So very solid structure, I think. Props, and just like you said, you're spot on. I think they have 250 to 300 employees. So this is at least like 10% minimum, or 75 to 10% of their workforce. That is significant. You get, I don't know when people say 33, it's like, but that's significant.
Yeah, like the number 33 makes it look so little, but I'm like, I mean, it's not the workforce.
Imagine, go for big, like, some big companies here, when you lay off like 1%, or even you get everybody, that can affect someone. But I think it's obviously glaring that it's FX issues when you're paying in foreign currency, likely USD, and your revenue is still heavily in Naira. You haven't really, like you said, they haven't really executed a global expansion, unlike Flutterwave have been aggressively trying to. And they haven't started seeing the results of that yet. So right now they're still paying in dollars, but they're earning in Naira. It's costly for them. I know now they are a subsidiary of Stripe, so they are more cutthroat as far as financial projections and expectations. If you are messing up, you're messing up. They're telling you, look, what's up? Do something about it. Not just pray and vibes. You get, so they had to make a very decisive action. What that now means long term is that, they say in every opportunity there's a whatever. So low key, the whole FX devaluation issue and the fact that it's now costly to retain staff in those markets, right, as a Nigerian company, means that they will have to look inward locally. He said, look, we have to localize our staffing to also meet our market. If your market is local, like imagine speaking to customer support in Dubai, explain to them that my MTN, this thing is not the thing. So there's some kind of connection that local affiliation offers you. And this is also a good news for local talent in Nigeria, because obviously now that means those 33, I assume that they're still needed. Give or take, there'll be like maybe 27 new job openings theoretically, like in Nigeria for local talents. Yeah. I think that's a good sign. I think other companies, other startups, if a startup that is smaller than Paystack, you don't even have foreign backing like Paystack, and you're still trying to go and hire from Dubai, you should just quickly see, this is what they say, the rearview mirror. Quickly see that, okay, my senior brother is already coming down. Let me come down too. So that's why I hate when startups do. They've seen someone that's ahead of them quickly adjusting to the economics. You don't want to adjust it, you're still forming. My own pitch deck is different. So quickly adjust and don't deceive yourself. Localize things.
Very huge market. It's very
200 million people. Localize things, man, and be realistic to your market. And it's a good strategy. I even think that if you want to even expand globally, you still want to keep your cost local. That's the biggest hack. Look at I know Rocotive is a bad example because of the other issues. But if all your talents are local and you're making FX higher value currency income, that's a very good hack. Yeah, that's what do you call that thing? Operational efficiency. You get or financial efficiency. You hacked it. I think Paystack should toe to that. And it's also scary that one of the biggest tech companies in Nigeria had close to, what was the percentage again? 10% of their workforce offshore. Yeah. That's significant. That's significant. I hope it's not like, because you don't see that in banking. Banking, almost like 10% of your workforce is local.
Basically, yeah. I'm not sure what the main goal was, right? I think this is probably a downside of. There are different ways to look at this, but I think it's also a downside of VC money, right? There's this, what's our reason VC money, right? There's this heavy push on reliance on just growing fast, right? Expand quickly, right? And that's why it leads to some of these fintechs that are already in a highly competitive space, requiring to find means to just quickly expand to newer markets, right? Especially newer markets that have a high purchasing power and more disposable income, right? So that's probably where this whole thing stems from. Do I fully agree with it? No. I mean, there's way too much talent on the African continent for you to be looking for other markets, right? I think, but going back to what the likes of Iroko TV and other things I would say, man, the purchasing power is just very little. Like these guys are probably making that much from. I mean, how much are they making in payments and fees here and there, right? And the whole USP is pretty much low cost and all this kind of stuff, right? As opposed to the banks. And I mean, I don't mean for general fintech, right? As opposed to banks who charge you fees and hidden fees and here and there, right? I mean, that's the whole USP, right? Quick payments, no fees. I mean, look at Send for example. Now you use Send, not even Send, or the likes of a lot of these fintechs, cross-border payments, likes of Send and Tap and some of these are like, I don't just get a free marketing on here, but but a lot of these guys don't charge you fees, right, for those cross-border payments, right? Now we know it's probably some type of arbitrage play, right? I mean, that's probably how they're making money from this FX transactions, but these are some of the things that the banks don't care they'll charge you for. Like if you want to wire money from Nigeria to US today, now they'll charge you, but they'll promise whether it's 5% or 10%, they'll charge you, right? Now as a user, right, we've complained for years that, oh my, like why does it doesn't cost you anything to send this money? Why are you charging me and stuff, right? But banks don't care. They'll still charge you. But these fintechs don't charge you for that, right? So all of a sudden now you're seeing how the margins are smaller. And if you're now raising capital, investors want to see how you're growing and how your margins are growing and how your revenue is growing. So maybe that's why there's now this push for them to like look into newer markets and stuff, just increase the SAM and the TAM and all that stuff, right? So yeah, I'm going back to the whole Paystack thing. I think the whole downsizing thing is it's definitely a lot. At least 10%. I won't say 10%, but it's somewhere around there, sure. But it's just gone under the radar. No one has really said much about it. Like it's just okay, you know what, this happened. But I think the one good thing I'll give them is, like you said, I think they gave them a good severance package. Maybe that's driven by the rules and regulations in these different regions. And they actually open up a portal for those getting laid off, right? I think they open up a portal for those getting laid off, so other companies would go in and look at the talents being laid off, and they could rehire them, right? And I know Shola also mentioned that anyone that wants a recommendation will get a really good referral letter from him and stuff like that, right? So then again, he's responsible. He's liable to do all these things for employees, so it's not really anything. But yeah. I don't know. That's why I wonder what the numbers are, because Stripe is still not a public company. That's the annoying thing, right? Stripe is not a public company. Funny enough, I know Stripe. I think recently they've not become cash flow positive. If I recall correctly, they've not become cash flow positive.
Okay.
They're actually a profitable company. So I know they're going towards an IPO as well. Funny enough, like I know that's probably the one company that would probably have some kind of huge IPO, right? Even if regardless of the economy, I think Stripe is going to probably have a huge IPO. I don't know how they manage to stay. I don't know how they manage
for this long, right?
And geez, I wonder how. I think they've raised about 20-30 billion at this point, right?
They're big.
They're big, man. So once they go public, we start seeing some of these numbers. They'll have to disclose like the pay stacks and them. I think so. They'll have to, right? They'll have to.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, any other thoughts on this whole news?
No, just like I said, that's really it. It's the news speaks for itself, right? And it's just for the market to take lessons from that.
Yeah. And just rounding up, there was another one that came out on Bolt Food. And Bolt is one company that I've always found interesting, right? Just with the fact that they actually founded in Estonia, right? Like, who the hell knows where Estonia is, right? And I was reading up about them and watching a documentary about them, how they're found in Estonia. And found as a really young guy. And they managed to compete with the likes of Uber and Lyft and these other guys when it comes to ride sharing, right? And they've also, over the pandemic, they also expanded into like Bolt Food and stuff like that, right? So Bolt, they had a unique strategy to expand into new markets. They had a strategy of keeping the costs low, keeping operations low, and they expanded to new markets in Africa as well, right? I think they went into Nigeria in 2021, if I recall correctly, either 2020 or 2021. And South Africa as well around the same period. Now, since then, they came out to announce that in December this year, that Bolt Food, not the whole of Bolt, Bolt Food will be exiting Nigeria and South Africa in December, right? So this poses a lot of questions, because we already know this is a highly competitive space, right? You have Uber Eats, you have Gokada, and I'm just talking more about like food delivery, right? You have Uber Eats, you have Glovo, which is probably one of the biggest ones. You have a lot of these guys that are already operating in this market, right? What's your take on this, right? Do you think they're leaving too soon? Do you think they probably didn't find the right way to expand? Or do you just think logistics in Nigeria, I can't really speak on South Africa, but do you just think logistics in Nigeria is just one probably just the ninth or eighth wonder of the world that people are still trying to figure out, right? Like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think Nigeria already is a small market, and international companies are always trying to look at what makes sense. They do a more thorough cost benefit analysis, particularly when you're not a key market for them, key in terms of cash or key in terms of strategic. Like, for example, I think Uber CEO said this at one point. Said, I can't remember what he said. He said, and I may be mixing it one way or the other, but he said they make more money from Uber Eats in Paris, and they relatively lose money in Uber in New York. But why wouldn't Uber want to be in New York? But we're saying that you almost have to play there when I lose money because that's a major city in the world. So you have to play there. So, and I think that's the same thing with how they think, right? Like if you're losing money in Nigeria, you're like, do we need to be here? Like you look at it like, okay, why are we even here? Let's go, Joe. So the market is already very small. Then imagine the ride-hailing market. I think it's small. That's meant to be their anchor in Nigeria. Then they now use experience from that to, shoot off their food delivery markets. And I think that is even micro small. First of all, state-wise, they're looking at just Lagos and Abuja realistically. And from those two, with the hard economy, people are not even driving anywhere, people are not even eating that much, you understand? So it's just a symptom of the macroeconomic condition in the country. And many, just like I know you heard of GSK, a European or British industrial and chemical manufacturing company left Nigeria. So many people are just so many foreign companies. The FX numbers don't make that much sense for them anymore.
People. Okay. And I think that's what it's boiling down to. I think some of these guys can still re-enter the Nigerian market, but I think that FX problem is really killing a lot of international companies, right? Because at the end of the day, they're earning in Naira and they're earning in Naira and they still have to report and do other stuff in dollars, right?
Yeah. So even if their sales grew by like 20%, they didn't grow in real terms.
So the FX really, because I think that was one thing I was just running through my mind. It's probably an FX issue. Right? The ones who are still able to stick there, the ones who have enough capital. Look at Glovo, for example. Glovo just raised $524 million or so in the last round, right? It was a Series F. So Glovo, they have money. They have money. They have money to do what Uber CEO Dara said, right? Just play that market.
Yeah.
So Bolt is the one company that Bolt hasn't raised a lot of companies. So that they haven't raised a lot of money compared to these guys. And that's the one about them. They've always found a way to operate lean. They found a way to grow and expand without needing to raise too much capital. So they don't have that much leeway to just play in this market, right? It's either it works or not. And I know they've also been through other things as well this year. I think earlier this year they were talking about like drivers wanted to go on strike and how Bolt had to increase the base pay and stuff like that to reduce the commission. So
wow.
Yeah, so I think they've been through, and this wasn't specific to Bolt. I think we're just ride-hailing services in general, because the whole FX thing was a problem. The fact that a lot of drivers felt like these ride-hailing services were taking too much in commission. So like there were a lot of things that were going on. I think even in Kenya, I think the regulatory board actually came out and actually ruled that they need to increase that base pay or something like that. But yeah, so like ride-hailing services have been under a lot of heat this year, right? Because drivers don't feel like they're getting compensated enough, right? So, and this and now, so all that going on now is now further intensified by this whole FX problem. So I'm not surprised that they're trying to cut certain things to just stay lean, right? And focus on their main areas of profitability, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, there's not really much else to really say about this. That they're leaving that space. They might come back again when things get better. Yeah, I won't be surprised, man. It's not as if these guys are removing any major infrastructure or they're closing office. Now you're just on the app, you just deactivate it, man. It's not working again.
I know what some people say, Nigerians are rude. When they announced this, I saw some tweets, some people were like, both foods in Nigeria. So in real what's it called? Let's be honest. I don't think they also like went hard or aggressive of that aspect. Everybody knows Taxify/Bolt ride hailing, but I don't think they went hard or aggressive on the food part. So it was also easy to scrap it out.
Don't forget, I know Glovo is a big food delivery service in Nigeria. But then again, they probably done a lot more marketing. But big one. I didn't even know Bolt really did. I didn't even know Bolt really did food. God forgive me. I didn't really know, man. But like I said, all they do, probably just deactivate the app, man. When they don't activate, they come back. So no deal. They'll be okay. they'll be okay. But I think that pretty much rounds it up for the main three topics that we had this week. On a lighter note, I don't know if you saw this yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, Sam Altman, right?
Oh
XC.
yes.
But this was interesting.
The joke now is that every November a Sam must be fired. So SBF or FTX. Last November, then this November, now this Sam. The next November, Uncle Sam, the US election. So Uncle Sam is looking for a new. So it's very interesting.
Very interesting. I mean, that's
if your CEO's name is Sam.
Be worried. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because although not really much came out, right? So for those who don't know what we're talking about, Sam Altman, the CEO, former CEO of former CEO of OpenAI. For those who don't know, OpenAI is the company that actually created ChatGPT, right? So I'm sure you know ChatGPT. So the news actually came out yesterday that he will be stepping down as CEO, and the current CTO will be stepping into filling that role. The main reason was along the lines of Sam not being completely transparent about the company and operations, and the board and the main shareholders losing faith in him and trust in him.
Yeah.
The lack of transparency. So that was pretty much all that was said. I'm sure more will come out in the next couple of days or next week, because I mean this is big news. Like when I saw this, right, I started thinking of like 80s Steve Jobs.
Wow, yes, true, actually, true. And something to say, something to say about OpenAI is that they are controlled by their non-profit arm. So they are owned and controlled by the non-profit arm, OpenAI non-profits. And that non-profit arm, so it's a very weird governance structure, which is why you're seeing the CEO getting fired. That non-profit arm controls the company completely, even though Microsoft, I think, owns 40% or whatever. Microsoft has no say. That's why I see Microsoft does. So 49. Yeah, that's why I see Microsoft didn't even get the memo about this. So they have almost no say. They have no board seat allocation. It's a crazy governance structure that they did. Almost to another way, the Bible of OpenAI is almost the guidelines and policies that govern the non-profit arm. A very complex structure, right?
I think that's spot on, right? Because I think a lot of people don't even know it, because when they saw the whole Microsoft $10 billion investment, right? So Microsoft doing it. But folks actually have to understand that OpenAI was founded as a non-profit, right?
Yep.
At least founded as a non-profit. A lot of the early investors, Elon Musk and those guys, right, eventually left because they couldn't. They
couldn't have that say. Yeah.
They couldn't agree with the need for OpenAI to now become a profit organization or for-profit organization. But even still at that, like you said, right, it's still primarily run by the non-profit arm. But now with the whole Microsoft investment, I forgot what it's called again, but it's now a profit-based organization, but the profits are capped as well, right?
Exactly.
You can't just make any, not like Microsoft without making trillions of dollars or billions of dollars. The profits are actually capped. So it's a weird structure. And the governance is also very weird. So I didn't even know Microsoft was not even informed of this. And I know that's something that Microsoft would be very worried about.
But you should, just like we saw with Steve Jobs, once the board throws you under the bus, it means there's little faith in the person. And people don't underestimate even non-profit, church, everything, many others are non-profit. The politics there is still real. You get, and there's usually power play and all those things like that. So I'm sure some people on the board even like Microsoft coming in. So there's so much going on underneath that we may not even understand till maybe like a decade, right? And the contract with Sam, because Sam was also on the board of the non-profit, that even makes it more scary that he was thrown under the bus like this. So whenever the real news starts coming out,
I wonder if that board. I mean, he didn't. He fell out. He fell out with OpenAI, right? He fell out with OpenAI. That's why he actually launched XAI.
Really?
Yeah. He actually launched his own AI. He has his own AI project, XAI. So I wonder.
So was Elon Musk that like saying they shouldn't be for profit. Was that his angle?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because so I mean he was literally the on the founding team for OpenAI, right? I mean back in the day. I think he invested like from get-go, was it like 50 million of his own money? Like he was one of the like early founders of OpenAI. Yeah. I mean Sam was brought in because and Sam's also a very young guy. But then again, he has a lot of stuff within YC and stuff, right? So he has a lot of experience like launching projects and doing this kind of tech-based startups, right? So he's like, now I don't know if he has the influence of a Steve Jobs. No. I don't think it's on that level as Steve Jobs, right? But then they're like, Apple was already Apple. Like the way Apple displaced the freaking computing space was just it's not even. I mean, now don't get me wrong, ChatGPT has also done a lot within the AI space. And that's why you have a lot of things. But as a company itself, ChatGPT they haven't achieved what Apple achieved, man. So I don't put him on Steve Jobs level and say, oh my God, he's good. Like him not being CEO will have that kind of effect like he did for Apple, right? But then again, I don't know. I mean, I guess when the whole thing else came, I just like, ChatGPT is one project that was, no, OpenAI was one company that was probably touted as having the impact like the likes of Apple and stuff did back in the 80s, right? 70s and 80s, right? But I don't know if Sam Altman has the influence that Steve Jobs had, man. I don't know. Only time will tell. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think he has that kind of influence?
I think so. It'll be very interesting. I mean, and all these battles, I think whenever there's a very strong CEO, the person always finds a way back. Look at Apple. Well, Uber is not a good Uber guy, didn't find his way back. But sometimes when the company grows bigger than your vision, you forget it. Somebody said that I think it was in the most too that said, look, AI is so relevant and so sensitive that once we open it up to everybody through ChatGPT, you can't hide it back in the box again. It's gone now. Like there's no more control. Forget about it. So even whatever the non-profit is trying to do as far as philosophy and idea, it's very hard to contain it again. It's gone. And every other company is building their own, every individual, everybody in their basement.
Yeah. But now we'll just cap it off there. I know we're already gone past the time, so we'll just cap it off there. But guys, thank you once again. Apology we missed last week, but yeah, we're back again. So listen to this and let us know what you guys think, whether it's on Flutterwave and the whole news with them and the IPO, whether it's on Paystack with the workforce reduction and diversity in certain markets, and even if it's just the boats news, right? What your thought is if you're in Nigeria, if you actually use boats food. Let us know your thoughts on the whole thing, and of course the OpenAI news as well. But once again, thank you guys for listening. Edosa, thanks for hopping on. It's always a pleasure doing this every week with you. And guys, stay blessed, share this with your friends, your network, and we will see you same time next week. Bye-bye.